Today on the Pro-Life Podcast, did Congress really defund Planned Parenthood? And some people are grumpy about it. We need to talk about this. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the Pro-Life Podcast. Thank you for joining us. And we have a crazy topic today. Never thought I would see the day that Congress actually defunded Planned Parenthood. So we have a lot to talk about, but first we want to express our prayers and sympathies for everyone who is affected by the floods in Central Texas. So just know that all of our prayers at Texas Right to Life are with you, especially if you've been impacted by the flood. And we're really praying for the pregnancy centers in Central Texas, too, who are going to be facing a lot of need there, too. So wanted to make sure that we're, as Texans standing together before we get into this awesome topic. And so how about let's introduce ourselves?
Yep. Dr. John Sego, president of Texas Right to Life.
Michaela Vaughn, Director of Education.
And Kim Schwartz, Director of Media and Communication. And today is the day. Well, it was 7 days ago, but today is the day that we get to talk about Congress actually defunding Planned Parenthood. I remember this being really hot over the last 10 years that I've been in the movement, but every time it's like, oh yeah, we're going to defund Planned Parenthood later, some other time.
Yeah, this has been a goal for the pro-life movement. Is we realized how much Planned Parenthood was benefiting from taxpayer dollars at the state level. A lot of states have worked on that. Texas got to lead on that several decades ago. But in D.C., there has been promises, no progress until now. And so Congress finally took the step to defund Planned Parenthood, stopping the Medicaid funding for up to a year. And so that's kind of what we're celebrating now, and we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, it's crazy because this means that there's $500 million at least, possibly more, because Planned Parenthood is kind of unclear with how they report how much government funding they get. But at least $500 million. Some say up to 700 or 800 million, but that's awesome. The fact that Planned Parenthood is the largest abortion business in the entire nation, and any money that goes to Planned Parenthood is supporting abortion, even if it's indirect. What else are we hearing?
The money doesn't actually go directly to the abortions. And actually, I think looking at how Planned Parenthood is run and the poor quality conditions we've seen, there's been undercover videos exposing them. That was really big when I got my start in the pro-life movement. When I was in college, I feel like every year there was some new information coming out about Planned Parenthood. And I remember tabling on campus, stopping people as they were walking by to talk about the poor conditions of some of the Planned Parenthoods, to talk about some of the sex trafficking footage that came out. But even if those two awful things never happened, even if Planned Parenthood was always in a pristine condition, delivering amazing care, or if there was no sex trafficking allegations and videos, even if those qualms could be satisfied, the problem is that babies are being killed by Planned Parenthood. And so in Planned Parenthood's own report from 2023 to 2024, 402,000 babies were killed by abortion. And the first myth that Kim mentioned was, abortion is only 3% of what Planned Parenthood does. That's 40% of our nation's abortions from this one entity.
That's huge.
402,000 babies. And you can break it down. So that means in one day, 1,076 babies are aborted by Planned Parenthood. And that comes out to about 45 abortions a day, which means, if I'm estimating the time of this podcast correctly, by the time you're done watching this podcast, that's 22 babies who lost their lives because of Planned Parenthood.
Whenever we dig into the data for some of those statistics about Planned Parenthood is a healthcare, clinic, and they also do abortions. When you dig into it, the statistics are just completely deceptive that they use. I mean, you look in their and so we dug into their annual report, and it would be like if a woman walks through their door, and they do two things. They take a pregnancy test and they do an abortion. They would treat those as two different services, right? So now, what is the money? What are they getting paid for? The abortion.
Right.
Which one is taking more time? The abortion. Which one is actually causing the death of the baby? The abortion. But on paper, they would say, see, 50% of what we did today was abortion, and then 50% were other good things. The point is, and this has been hard to get across to even some of our friends, Planned Parenthood is an abortion business. Yeah. That is their entire focus. When you look at their rhetoric, when you look at their annual reports, when you talk, hear interviews with their president, they exist for one purpose. However, a lot of our friends don't feel that way. A lot of our Texans and other people across the country still have a generally good perception of Planned Parenthood.
What's shocking to me this time around, we've been having this conversation about defunding Planned Parenthood for longer than I would like to admit. I wish it was done 10 plus years ago. But 10 years ago, whenever, we were in the national spotlight again about defunding Planned Parenthood themselves would say, you know what? Abortion is only a small fraction of what we do. They would say it's only 3% of what we do. If you defund Planned Parenthood, that means that you're shutting down access to all these other good services, cancer screenings, STI tests, you name it. And so they would downplay abortion and emphasize their other good services. Planned Parenthood is actually saying that defunding Planned Parenthood is equal to an abortion ban. They're putting abortion front and center, saying that if you cut off access to Planned Parenthood, you're cutting off access to abortion. They're synonymous. Which I'm glad they're being honest this time. That's actually true. Planned Parenthood is synonymous with abortion. So at least they're being honest about that this time. And so I think in the reaction, we're seeing some people adopt that line of thinking. They're adopting that talking point of, abortion is actually a good thing. We need more abortions. So we need Planned Parenthood. We need to pour tax dollars into Planned Parenthood. That's kind of the less popular take, I think, present as people kind of realize nobody likes abortion. I think that's still a lot of the motivating factor there about at least not goodwill for abortion, but goodwill for Planned Parenthood.
Right.
One of the other things that we hear is that in a state like Texas, why are we still targeting Planned Parenthood? Why are we still hating on them when we've banned abortion and they're not committing abortions? But Michaela, we heard something at the University of Houston from a student there of Planned Parenthood has not been deterred from their mission. Yeah. You want to remind us of that story that we heard at University of Houston?
Yeah, so at a rally that the University of Houston, the pro-life group there hosted, one student bravely came out and shared her testimony. She was in college, found herself pregnant, and went to the local Planned Parenthood. She was already abortion-minded at that point. And she went into the appointment, and Planned Parenthood told her that they could not schedule her for an appointment at that facility. But she walked out of the Houston Planned Parenthood in Texas with an appointment booked for the Boulder, Colorado Planned Parenthood. She had her flight booked, Uber scheduled to and from the airport to the hotel to the Boulder Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood helped her secure funding for that entire trip to receive her abortion. So Planned Parenthood, where abortion is still legal, they are still committing abortions on their own state citizens, but also on Texans as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think that something that we've seen about how defunding Planned Parenthood affects abortion rates, some people will say you would actually increase abortions because teen pregnancy will go up if they don't have access to Planned Parenthood. And so you would actually cause more abortions because you're causing more unplanned pregnancies. I see where you're thinking. However, that's not how the facts play out. Whenever Texas defunded Planned Parenthood and everybody was acting like the sky was going to fall and saying that you're actually going to increase teen pregnancies and therefore increase abortions, we saw abortions go down because we limited access to Planned Parenthood. We limited funding to Planned Parenthood. They chose to close, and then abortions went down.
Yeah. So in Texas, we're very rehearsed on all of this because we've done it, right? We've been there in our kind of strategy to defund the abortion industry in multiple different ways. We had the Medicaid fight. We had it in a waiver. We had a Medicaid waiver program first that we got to make some of the own rules. We had to have that fight. We won that fight, and then finally we were able to kick Planned Parenthood out of the Medicaid program here in Texas. And because of those undercover videos that you talked about that showed that they were violating federal law, that they were trafficking the body parts of abortion victims, and that they were trying to profit off of not just selling abortion, but then also selling the bodies of the victims of abortion. And whenever those undercover videos came to light, it showed that they were breaking federal law, which started a 6-year court battle here in Texas for us to officially kick them out. But we had to go through that fight. We had to prove they broke federal law through court. We had to fight. And then 6 years later, finally got them out of our Medicaid program. Whereas with other states now, they don't have to do that.
Yep.
At least for a year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, we're talking about a temporary 1-year hold.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of showing it is possible, but it takes a lot of work for states to get there. Thankfully, Congress has led the way for a trend that hopefully will be renewed in a year, and we'll actually get to, the original version of the bill had a 10-year freeze on all Planned Parenthood funding. It needs to be indefinite. I don't know why we would even settle for 10 years, but
good point.
No, this is like you mentioned, Kim, this is the first time they've done it. So we can be thankful Congress finally did something right.
Yes. Thank God.
Yeah.
Let's take a break real quick, but I want to talk more about what are the next steps. So you said, we've got this 1-year reprieve, but that doesn't mean that we let off the gas and we're like, well, we did it one time, so that was probably good enough. What are the next steps? What are things that states can still do on this? Because that's not the only place. Medicaid is not the only source of funding, taxpayer funding that Planned Parenthood gets. And what are some of the other arguments that you might hear saying, well, Planned Parenthood is so great, why would you want to defund them? So we're going to talk about all of that after this.
Do you have a cell phone? Do you have pro-life values? Do you like saving money? Well, Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, and they've partnered with Texas Right to Life. So if you'll go to patriotmobile.com/Texas Right to Life or call 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and use the checkout code TRTL, they'll give you a free month of service. So make the switch today. Have your money support causes you believe in and save and get a whole free month. Make the switch right now. What are you doing still watching this? Make the switch right now.
Want to support a cause you love and look great doing it? Visit the Texas Right to Life online store. You'll find t-shirts, hats, mugs, bags, everything you need to rep the pro-life movement wherever you go. Plus, you'll get free shipping on every order. Listeners like you, yes, you, can get 15% off when you use code PODCAST at checkout. Visit store.texasrighttolife.com today to shop with purpose and make a difference. Welcome back, friends. Thank you for coming back. And we're going to talk about how people are reacting to the Planned Parenthood defunding. I'm sure you've heard a lot of it, and we want to break down some of the arguments that people are saying, whether they are in lockstep with Planned Parenthood, whether they think, oh, abortion is like kind of okay, Planned Parenthood is kind of okay, we should keep them around, and how to refute some of those arguments. So what do we get? What are we hearing?
Yeah, I think one of the first ones we'll talk about that isn't as popular as others starts off with this idea. Most people, even people who might be a little more left-leaning, can agree to say taxpayers should not be funding abortions. And so that's when you might hear a pro-abortion advocate say something like, well, we already have the Hyde Amendment, which states that no federal money can directly pay for an abortion. Now, the workaround for that is Planned Parenthood will use these Medicaid reimbursements to pay for their rent, to pay for salaries. And then they'll use the money they raise themselves to fund the abortions, because there's this crazy concept called fungibility.
It would be like if, let's say Michaela is a smoker. She's not, but for the sake of this
as far as you know.
True. I didn't ask. So Michaela has only $20 to her name, and she needs to buy groceries, but she also wants to buy cigarettes. And she's got to choose one. She's either can spend her $20 on her groceries or $20 on her cigarettes. And I said, Michaela, I'll give you $20 for your groceries. And you're like, yes. Now, what are you going to spend your $20 on? Your cigarettes. So in giving Michaela money, who in this analogy has an addiction, I've now supported her addiction because she's using her own money. Guys, it's all good. It's all good. Sorry, you're forgiven in this analogy here. Sure. Yeah. So now giving her $20 for her groceries to pay for a good thing allows her to use her own money to pay for a bad thing. And so that's where Planned Parenthood gets involved, that if we are giving taxpayer money to Planned Parenthood at all while they're still doing abortions, then we are supporting abortion.
Yeah, and this is the whole argument we've made at the state level for every funding stream, because we have, we started pretty strong in 2013. 2011 to 2013, we started this defunding effort, and we kept looking through our state budget to see, hey, they are in this program and they're promising to do good things through this program. Okay, we got to stop that. Okay, now they're in this program over here as well. Whether it's public health, whether it's cancer screenings or counseling about cancer, whatever it is. And we had to make the case to the legislature that it doesn't matter what Planned Parenthood comes to promise the state of Texas. We do not need to be benefiting this organization with our funds. And so we held the line, and we made the case that if Planned Parenthood came to the state of Texas and said, hey, we will pave the roads outside of the Capitol, we would still oppose that. Yeah. We would be against giving them any money for any reason. And especially when it gets into healthcare, because the case that we have to make is, what happens when we give them money for a good service? Let's say we do want them to do screenings, cancer screenings in our community here. Well, one, we're propping them up. We're saying this is a trusted brand. This is a trusted clinic. Come here for good healthcare services. You can trust them. We're also letting Planned Parenthood create their target audience. Now they know the women in our community. They know how to advertise, hey, their number one service, abortion, to them. And so we're giving them customers, we're giving them advertisement, and we're building their organization. Like you talked about with the fungibility, we're building their brand. And so, just saying, well, they're promising to do something good for us, we should give them money, is like, no, we need to oppose them totally. It's a corrupt organization. This is why this session, we even opposed a ceremonial resolution that would praise the legacy of Cecile Richards and Planned Parenthood, because it's, she also did some other good things. No, she did not. There's nothing that Planned Parenthood ever contributed to Texas that we can just say, well, that part is good, because it was all wrapped in this number one mission of Planned Parenthood to sell abortion to Texas women. And so that's kind of why we absolutely should oppose them for any reason, even if we think, it's not technically going for the abortion.
Yeah. And I think wrapped up in all of that pro-Planned Parenthood rhetoric is this assumption that the only non-abortion healthcare provider is Planned Parenthood. The only place you can go to for a cancer screening or any sort of STI testing, I know they talk about, is Planned Parenthood, but that's unequivocally false. You can look up in your area federally qualified health centers, sometimes shortens to FQHC, and there are more federally qualified health centers. So the federal government has, their criteria of what you need to be a qualified health center. There are more of these FQHCs than there are Planned Parenthoods.
Yeah. And so 15 to 1.
15 to 1. So we have alternatives that don't provide abortion. So we can, in the future, look at moving the funding over to them, creating a more robust health system that doesn't include killing babies, which last I checked has nothing to do with health and healing.
Yeah.
And in Texas, we're trying to make that argument with the actual dollars that we allocate in our budget. And so, yes, we've kicked Planned Parenthood out, but at the same time, we've allocated over $500 million for women's health services across Texas. And so, the FQHCs are kind of wrapped up into that. The community health centers are wrapped up into that. Individual Medicaid cover, we actually have grants to, incentivize doctors to go to underserved areas, whether it's in rural Texas or, in a community that doesn't have enough healthcare providers. And so Texas is investing in life-affirming healthcare and not having to compromise for the promise of something good that Planned Parenthood may be telling them. And so you're absolutely right. And in Texas, we're trying to do that. And it did take, in 2011 and 13 and 15, it did take some time to fully implement those policies, to invest in those other alternative services. But when you look at what's at stake, building up an abortion, clinic in the middle of your community, and propping them up with taxpayer dollars, it is worth that extra investment. It is worth making sure we can do this right. We can serve moms and protect their babies from abortion.
Yeah, seems reasonable. I would say the more shocking thing that people are saying, rather than the more prominent thing that Planned Parenthood was saying 10 years ago, that abortion is only 3% of what we do. We're going to downplay that. There's so many other great things. I think we've successfully debunked that so much that they've even run from that talking point and are now saying abortion is healthcare. Defunding Planned Parenthood means that this is an abortion ban, and Planned Parenthood is synonymous with abortion. Abortion is such a good thing. I've been kind of surprised to see how many people are actually picking up on that and repeating that.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's a red flag. I mean, it's something we should, as pro-lifers, be really worried about, because Planned Parenthood has a lot of money. They have the highest paid consultants in DC. They have the highest, paid marketing, consultants behind them, and their, design when you go to their website. We should pay attention to what they're saying online, how they're messaging things. And this shows you that they think abortion generally is a better selling point now than it was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, they knew if they mentioned the A word, it was going to hurt them in public. Now they're using that to build themselves up, right? To grow. And so I think we should be, kind of paying attention to that. Strategically, this kind of matches what we've seen in the polls whenever it comes to opinion polls of people have a higher view of abortion than they did before Dobbs. Unfortunately, they have a higher view of Planned Parenthood than they did before Dobbs. And so we have this education effort, these conversations, and this is a great opportunity to have those those conversations and help educate even our conservative friends, even our friends at church, about really what Planned Parenthood is, what their focus is, what their legacy is, and why we shouldn't want them to receive any taxpayer dollars.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think that'll be really important going into the next steps, because like I said, this isn't the one victory we were looking for. We only wanted to defund Planned Parenthood for a year. Now that we're done it, we're good. That's not been on the agenda. We want to cut off Planned Parenthood from taxpayer dollars forever. We want abortion to be illegal. We want newborn babies to be protected. And so there are a lot of steps that we need to get there. One of the big missed opportunities in this bill, the big, beautiful bill, great marketing, is that the House version was going to defund Planned Parenthood for 10 years. And then the Senate walked that back to 1 year. I think that's a failure from Republicans. They need to stay strong on this issue. And that's why Christians shouldn't, we've talked about this before, shouldn't spike the football whenever we say we defund Planned Parenthood. It does sound like whenever you say defund Planned Parenthood, it sounds like Planned Parenthood gets $0 now. And that's not true, because they also have other funding streams like Title X.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a really important point is, politically speaking, they snuck a lot into this bill. It is a big bill. And there are a lot of things that even some of our friends don't like in the bill. And so, but by only kicking it down 1 year, it allows them to use the defund as a decoy. And so we do have to be honest, and we do have to hold our elected officials accountable, is we don't want this to become a ruse. The pro-life movement can't just become a way that they can get away with other bad governance, right? And so we do need to continue to insist. No, we want a permanent solution to not funding the Merchants of Death, Planned Parenthood at all.
Yeah.
And so I think, we need to, yes, let's celebrate. Let's thank our elected officials for voting the right way, but then let them know we have a higher standard for you.
Yeah, exactly. Lead them down the right path. And again, that this isn't the one and done. Like, yes, we want to have this conversation again next year when it comes again to budget reconciliation, and that defunding Planned Parenthood isn't just like a shiny object for the pro-life movement that you can hold in front of our faces, but that this is an actual policy goal. We need to cut off access to the other funding streams too.
Yep.
We need Planned Parenthood to get $0. And there are even exceptions in this bill.
Yeah, actually, and I haven't seen this talked as much even in the pro-life sphere, but there is an exception for the life of the mother. Okay, even our Texas law has that. So Planned Parenthood can receive a Medicaid reimbursement if they perform abortions to save the life of the mother. But where there's a failure is that there's a rape and incest exception. And I know that this is a more difficult conversation, even among Republicans, about women who have faced these awful, awful crimes. And why don't we care about the woman who has faced these crimes? And I think the first place you have to come from is this place of compassion for the woman, but also understand that abortion is not a loving, true solution, because what abortion does is it's an act of violence, and it only creates another victim. If a child is conceived in one of these unfortunate circumstances, the child is an innocent party, much like the mother. And so the life of a child who is conceived in these unfortunate circumstances, that child is just as worthy of life as I am. And I think that's something that we need to urge our lawmakers, like you're all talking about, that we want to see improvement for next time. So I'm not satisfied at this one-time, one-year bill. I'm going to be going back to my lawmakers. Give me that 10 years, give me that perpetual defunding, and let's remove this rape and incest exception.
Even on the health of the mother exception, it is ridiculous to think that in a medical emergency that a woman would go to Planned Parenthood and not a hospital.
Yeah.
I can call 911 or go to Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
And so, we have worked a lot in Texas on this issue. We do not, belittle these situations at all. Like I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into a bill this session to make sure that doctors know exactly what they can do. And I had friends that were, pro-life that hated me for working on this bill. I had friends, that were pro-abortion that hated us for working on it because it didn't go far enough. Like, it was a rough bill to do, but we did it because we want doctors to know pro-life laws do not stop you from, caring for these women. But we have to acknowledge in those circumstances, if a woman is, having a miscarriage or an ectopic pregnancy that's, getting complicated, or some other, like a PPROM, her water breaks way too early in pregnancy, she's not going to Planned Parenthood.
No.
And so
the emergency room.
And so when we talk about next steps, we really have to encourage our elected officials and the administration to implement this correctly, that it doesn't become a loophole for Planned Parenthood just to claim every woman who walks through her door is in a medical emergency.
Exactly.
And so, it by putting these things based in, in it, we are kind of asking for some abuses, and we shouldn't trust Planned Parenthood at their word on these. And so, we do have on next steps some accountability to make sure that Planned Parenthood isn't still, benefiting from taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. And a way that we can actually take a more permanent solution here, the Supreme Court just opened the door for. There was a recent Supreme Court case that affirmed that states can defund Planned Parenthood, and they're actually making it easier than what we had to struggle for the last 10 years, if you want to explain a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, this is the great news that I think kind of was like overshadowed by the big, beautiful bill, right? Is that the Supreme Court said states can make a decision a policy decision. Just because of who Planned Parenthood is, because of what they do, they're an abortion provider, we can stop Medicaid funding from going to them. So even right now, while we're in this 1-year freeze, states can take the effort to say, hey, we want this to be permanent for our state. And so we're encouraging all of our friends to do that the Supreme Court has just cleared all of the barriers that we had to jump over as Texas. They just cleared all those barriers, and states can say, no, by policy, we do not want any Medicaid funding to go to Planned Parenthood or other abortion providers and their affiliates in our state. And so that is actually a permanent solution that might be the right time to strike, right? During this moment of freeze, and to show the sky is not falling. These states are doing fine. They can still care for their women. They can still care for their babies and provide actual health care. This may be the right moment for them to take up this right that the Supreme Court just affirmed.
That's awesome. Well, we have so much to do still, especially, I just have one last thought. I think that since Congress just defunded Planned Parenthood, states can defund Planned Parenthood even more if they decide to. You're going to see blue states try to dump even more funding into Planned Parenthood. Yeah. I heard of New Mexico trying to brainstorm ways to use taxpayer dollars to build abortion clinics.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would utter that sentence, but here we are. So I think that there's going to still be a lot to do to make sure that we're protecting Texas women from out-of-state abortions and spreading cultural awareness, so that way we are making an impact in other states, and there becomes like a disgust to hear that your taxpayer dollars are going to Planned Parenthood or building abortion clinics, or both, since Planned Parenthood now says that it's synonymous. So yeah, we have a lot to do. I hope that you have found this episode informative, that you feel a little bit more confident now having these conversations about what Planned Parenthood does. Is abortion only a small percentage of what they do, and what the real impact is going to be of defunding Planned Parenthood on the federal level. So friends, thank you for joining us again for another episode. We will see you in 2 weeks.